Welcome to this explainer. Okay, we're going to dive right into something that's honestly a little unsettling. Think about the absolute biggest choices in your life. The job offer you took, the really expensive stuff you buy, or even those deep-seated opinions you fiercely defend online. Well, what if those choices aren't actually yours? What if the very foundation of how you make decisions is being compromised by forces you don't even see?
It's a heavy question, right? But the crazy thing is, your brain is basically influencing you all day long without your permission. It uses these hidden psychological traps that quietly control how you think, how you choose, how you spend, and even who you trust. And the absolute most dangerous part of all this, you usually don't even notice it happening, because these traps don't feel like manipulation. They just feel exactly like common sense. So today, we're going to uncover these hidden forces so you can finally grab the wheel and take back control.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Internal Deceptions, or How Your Brain Protects Your Ego. We're looking inward at the tricks our minds play to prioritize evolutionary survival over basic logic. First up, the classic sunk cost trap. Picture this. You've spent years grinding away at a degree or a job that you absolutely despise. Every single day feels like climbing a mountain, and deep down, you know you want out. But instead of asking what's actually best for you right now, your brain plays a massive trick on you. It forces you to stay just to make all that past effort feel worth it. It whispers, hey, I've already spent 3 years on this. I can't quit now. We do this with relationships, businesses, even sitting through awful movies just because we've already watched an hour of the thing. Here's the brutal truth, though. That time you've already spent, it is gone forever. You literally cannot recover it by wasting even more time trying to validate a past decision. So instead, you have to step back and ask yourself, if I were starting from absolute zero today, would I choose this again? If your genuine answer is no, then the past shouldn't dictate your future. You have to learn to let that sunk cost go and move forward based on who you are today, not who you were years ago.
Next up is confirmation bias. And look, we all do this literally every single day. We feel this massive wave of relief when we find a handful of people online who agree with our politics or our hot takes. We're like, see, I knew I was right all along. But the exact second we bump into someone who disagrees, we instantly hunt for reasons to completely dismiss them. Why? Because your brain naturally craves comfort. It gets deeply uncomfortable when reality challenges your worldview, so it just builds a cozy little echo chamber for you to live in.
To bust out of that echo chamber, you've got to ask yourself a seriously uncomfortable question. What would actually convince me that I'm wrong? Seriously, take a second and think about it for a belief you hold. Because if your answer is absolutely nothing, you aren't impartially defending the truth anymore. You're just defending your ego. A lot of the time, our brains aren't searching for truth at all. They're just scanning for confirmation so we can feel secure in our assumptions. Which brings us to the negativity bias. Thousands of years ago, noticing danger was quite literally what kept our ancestors from becoming lunch. If you ignored a beautiful sunset, no big deal. If you ignored a rustle in the bushes, well, you didn't survive. So our brains evolved to act like highly sensitive radar systems, constantly scanning for threats. But today, this ancient survival mechanism can easily ruin your entire day, completely skewing how you evaluate yourself and everyone around you. Just think about how this actually plays out in normal life. You could get 100 glowing compliments on a project at work, but your brain will literally throw 99 of them in the garbage just to obsess over one tiny insult or minor critique. That single negative comment can have you questioning your entire career and losing sleep. The brain is just hardwired to notice what's wrong, meaning you have to put in deliberate, conscious effort to actually notice what's right.
All right, let's move right into our second theme, external illusions, how others distort your reality. This is all about how just being around other people completely warps our perception of what's happening.
We've all been there, right? You trip over your words during a big presentation, or you wear a short that just feels a bit off, and you spend the entire drive home agonizing over it. You walk away absolutely convinced that every single person in that room is judging you and will remember your slip-up forever. You feel completely exposed. Well, psychologists call this the spotlight effect. But here is the incredibly freeing truth. You are not living under a giant spotlight. Most people forget your mistakes in a matter of minutes, or honestly, they probably never even noticed them to begin with. Why? Because they are lugging around their own giant spotlight. Everyone is way too busy stressing over their own presentation, their own hair, their own problems to hyperfixate on yours. Realizing that is basically a superpower. It lifts a massive weight right off your shoulders. Then there's social proof, which is another massive external illusion. Think about walking down a street and picking the restaurant with a line wrapped around the building instead of the empty one next door. or buying something online purely because it has a bestseller badge. Your brain instantly assumes the crowd knows something you don't. But popularity doesn't always equal quality. Sometimes an idea or a trend spreads like wildfire just because everyone is terrified of being the odd one out.
Next up, the halo effect. As a society, we naturally, and completely incorrectly by the way, just assume that attractive people are inherently nicer, or that famous people are experts on everything, rich people are geniuses, and tall people make amazing leaders. We let one glowing positive trait create this blinding halo that completely stops us from seeing a person's actual capabilities or, their hidden flaws. You see this happen in job interviews all the time. Someone walks in and they're a smooth talker, perfectly dressed, and we instantly trust them. We assume they're highly capable just because they look the part. Meanwhile, we might completely dismiss someone who is a bit nervous and stumbling over their words as incompetent. But in reality, that nervous person might be 10 times more qualified for the job. You have to force yourself to look for actual evidence rather than just judging the halo. And that leads us right into our third and final theme. Mental shortcuts. Because, spoiler alert, your brain's ultimate hidden goal is just to save energy by running on autopilot. Let's picture a scenario. You walk into a high-end store and you see this stunning watch. Sitting right next to it is a massive price tag, $5,000. Huge number, right? But then, right underneath it, you see the $5,000 is crossed out and it's marked down to a today-only price of $1,500. Now here's the catch. You have absolutely no idea if that watch is actually worth $1,500. But that very first massive number you saw acted as an anchor. It totally tricked your brain into feeling like you're getting the bargain of a lifetime. Your brain doesn't stop to logically ask, wait, is this metal and glass actually worth $1,500? It just panics, in a good way, and thinks, whoa, I'm saving $3,500. Marketers know this shortcut, like the back of their hand, and they use it to bypass your logic all the time. Another crazy energy saver is the availability heuristic. Because of this little trap, highly emotional and dramatic things like airplane crashes, massive crypto meltdowns, violent crime, or high-profile business failures, they pop into our minds so easily. And because they're easy to remember, we completely ignore actual statistics. If you see 3 plane crashes on the news in a month, suddenly you're convinced flying is a death trap. We assume things are super common just because they're memorable. But what is memorable is very rarely what is common. And this sequence perfectly maps out what psychologists call the Dunning-Kruger effect, the journey of false expertise. You know exactly how this goes. You watch like 2 short videos on stock investing, and suddenly you feel totally ready to give your friends financial advice. But as you dig deeper and learn more, your confidence takes a nosedive because you finally realize just how incredibly complicated it all is. It just proves that initial confidence is definitely not evidence of competence. Often, the absolute smartest person in the room is the one who is comfortable saying, you know what, I just don't know. The last of these mental shortcuts we'll cover is the default effect. Whether it's an app subscription where the yes box was already checked for you, or just eating the exact same lunch every day, letting things remain unchanged for long enough literally tricks you into believing you deliberately chose them. But a lot of the time you didn't choose anything. You just accepted the default setting because changing it required a little too much brain power. All right, bringing it all together, taking back your mind, and the biggest trap of all. We've explored 10 distinct mental traps, but there's one massive, underlying danger connecting every single one of these energy-saving shortcuts. Here is the bottom line. When you rely entirely on assumptions, or when you stay quiet because you're terrified of the spotlight, or you blindly follow the crowd just because of social proof, you lose your autonomy. Your brain is fully running on autopilot. At that point, your choices aren't even choices anymore. They're just reactions. You've stopped driving the car, and you're letting a bunch of ancient survival mechanisms steer your life. So how do we actually fix this? Well, you can't magically erase every bias. Your brain is always going to use shortcuts to save energy. But you can start doing this. Literally pause before making a big decision. Ask yourself what hard evidence actually supports or contradicts what you're about to do. By catching the mental trap in real time, pausing to ask for proof, and creating just a tiny sliver of space between the impulse and the action, you win. Inside that tiny space, you regain the incredibly powerful ability to make a conscious choice. If this explainer made you rethink even one choice you've made lately, take this final thought with you. Next time you're at a crossroads, ask yourself, am I actively choosing this, or am I simply following the path of least resistance? Look, you might not be able to control every single thought that pops in your head, but you can absolutely learn to understand the mind you're experiencing the world with. Take back the wheel. Thanks for exploring this with me today. Now, go question your defaults.